I want to ask you then specifically about like the mental side of it. We can go through the different, because I guess there's the physical side, the mental side, and then maybe like you know your professional side of it as well, because obviously you're not just wanting to keep fit, it's your job. So mentally, it's a whole kind of thing that you'll be going through, because there's hormones that kick in pretty heavy, and there's the tiredness and lots of different things, because also usually you would be training at this point, you'd be racing all the time, whereas now you're kind of training for a unknown return date at some point next year. When did you race it up to? Was it nationals that you had your last race this year?
Yeah, so I stopped racing in bunch races on the road, like in a peloton, once I found out I was pregnant. So I think I maybe did a couple of races before I found out, like really, really early on. But yeah, after I found out, stop that, it just felt it was too hard to kind of really get my head in the game, because it's not a safe sport. Like, it is a dangerous sport. And the idea of thinking, what I had and what the risk would be, versus what the outcome could be of like even a really good race, I just thought I'd rather try and stay safe and try and get into the pregnancy a bit further. Before I start doing stuff like that. But I did quite a lot of time trials. So I did a lot of local time trials for a long time, basically from 5 weeks onwards. And then my last race was the time trial at the national championships when I was about 15 weeks. Not very comfortable to get into time trial position.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been more comfortable time trials that you've had, but I think that's probably quite surprising that you would be doing such a like significant race. The British National Time Trial Championship, it's a big race on the calendar in terms of British cycling, and to be pushing your body that hard, people are probably thinking, "Oh, okay, like, is that safe?" I thought, women had to, they couldn't do anything during pregnancy. They couldn't lift anything. They couldn't do anything. What's been your experience and your narrative on pushing your body and training throughout pregnancy?
Well, firstly, I wouldn't really say I raced. Like, I didn't really compete. I would say that I participated. For context, the last few years I've been on the podium, and this year I was 16th. Like, I wasn't pushing myself to the same point, because I did have that heart rate cap that I wanted to, I'm not really treating it as 174 beats per minute is safe, 175 beats per minute is disaster. But I don't want to spend too much time above that. That's kind of what all the literature that my coach and myself have been looking at, is to say that above 90% of your max heart rate is when the baby tends to get a little bit less blood flow, which is not really what you want to sustain. So it was a really fun challenge, actually. I think it was really nice to have that goal to motivate myself to kind of take up a big chunk of the pregnancy, because I didn't want to look at it as, right, I've just got a 9-month block now with no racing. I wanted something to break it up, and that got me almost 4 months of the way through, which is really, really nice to have that to focus on, to break it up. And then it was quite nice to be able to look at things in a slightly different way. So I could look at the course and think, right, I've got this limiting factor in my max heart rate. So how can I play with this on the course? Where am I going to really go hard? Because there were points I think my heart rate went to about 190, but it was very brief. And then I would let it come back down again.
It's like you have this like finite amount that you can spend, and you're like, where am I going to fit this? I'm going to drop a coin here. I'm going to go here.
And it's always the case in time trials. Like, you do have a finite amount of energy to expend anyway, but it was just very literal, right in front of me. And so that was quite fun to play with. I hoped for a better result. From my training data and comparing to previous races last few years, we were hoping that I'd be able to maybe get in the top 10. Like, that was my goal. And then I got like 2 minutes in, and I don't know if it's just the excitement, adrenaline of being at a race, but my heart rate was already at its max. I was like, oh.
You're like, oh dear.
I was like, I don't think I'm going to get a result today. So it was still really fun, and I'm so glad that I did it. But I would, definitely consider it a participation rather than, I wasn't a threat to the win of the podium or anything like that.
And what about the mental side of pregnancy? We kind of alluded to that there. And obviously you described how actually breaking it up mentally, it was a lot easier than just having this 9 months block. And then, of course, that's when you have the child, you're not exactly going to go back to racing straight afterwards. How is that side been with training and motivation and everything in between?
I actually haven't struggled for motivation at all, really. Yeah, I think what's been hard is been feeling really ill, really tired, and really wanting to train. Um, but yeah, motivation wise, I think because I had I had that goal of getting to nationals well, and then I've definitely had a nice second trimester hiccup of energy, not feeling so fatigued. I've got way more good days than bad days, which is fantastic. I know that that's not going to last forever. So part of me is like, okay, make the most of this. This is where I'm really need to bank some good training. And I've got some kind of, yeah, silly little goals, things that I want to achieve, tick off, like a number of hours that I want to be able to maintain per week, that kind of thing. And that stuff really keeps me motivated. But I think it is knowing that actually I'm at the top of a curve that's only going to go down until it's time to have a baby. And eventually it's going to come back up. But the higher I can keep the curve, the higher the bottom of it essentially. Like the fitter I can go to my pregnancy, the into childbirth, the easier it'll be on the other side to come back and to feel fit quicker.